Alright, let's talk about your email. Specifically, let's talk about that little flutter of panic you might have felt recently, that cold sweat that forms when you hear the words Gmail security emergency, all in the same sentence. It's a feeling akin to realizing you accidentally replied all to a company-wide email with a meme about your boss. Recently, the internet did what the internet does best. It took a small, contained piece of information, strapped a rocket to it, and launched it directly into the sun. Rumors began swirling, spreading like digital wildfire, that Google had issued a massive, unprecedented security warning to every single one of its billions of Gmail users. The implication was terrifying. A colossal breach, a digital doomsday, where our inboxes were suddenly as secure as a screen door on a submarine. These weren't just whispers in some obscure corner of the web. They were headlines, notifications, panicked social media posts. People imagined hackers feasting on their personal data, reading their embarrassing fan fiction, or even worse, seeing their Amazon order history. So, amidst the digital shrieking and the frantic password resets, what did the adults in the room have to say? Well, Google, the very company at the center of this supposed meltdown, stepped forward to pour a very large, very cold bucket of water on the entire affair. Their official statement was the kind of firm, unequivocal denial you rarely see. They stated, quite clearly, that the claims of a broad warning to all Gmail users about a major security issue were, and I quote, entirely false. There you have it. No emergency, no universal warning, no mass panic from inside the Googleplex. It was the corporate equivalent of turning on the lights at a party to reveal that the terrifying ghost in the corner was just a coat rack. To be absolutely clear, Google did not send a mass warning to its users. They did not detect some new, super phishing attack that bypassed all their defenses. Instead, they reiterated what is, for them, business as usual. In their statement, they confirmed that their systems are constantly at work, stating that their protections continue to block more than 99.9% of phishing and malware attempts from reaching users. That's not a new emergency statistic, that is their baseline. That is the standard they operate at every single day. It's a staggering figure that highlights just how much malicious traffic is constantly being thrown at our inboxes without us ever even knowing it exists. So, if there was no Gmail apocalypse, where on earth did this story come from? Like most good myths, it started with a kernel of truth. The source of all this confusion was a completely separate and far more limited security incident involving a Salesforce instance. Now for most people, hearing Salesforce instance is about as exciting as reading a toaster's instruction manual. It's a tool used by businesses for managing customer relationships. Crucially, it is not Gmail. It is not your personal email account. It is not where you store your passwords, your private photos, or your drafts of angry letters to your local councilman. The incident in question involved a database used by Google's sales team to communicate with potential advertisers, specifically small and medium-sized businesses. This database contained what Google described as basic business contact information. We're talking about publicly available data, company names, contact people, business email addresses. According to Google's clarification, they discovered the issue and, by August 8th, had already taken measures to mitigate risks for users and alerted all those affected. A small subset of business contacts, not 2.5 billion regular Gmail users. There was no breach of Google's own systems, and certainly no compromise of personal Gmail accounts. Understanding that the actual event was a minor business-related incident, the next logical question is, how did we get from a lost Rolodex to a 5-alarm global emergency? The answer lies in a toxic cocktail of media misinterpretation, the speed of social media, and a phenomenon known as context collapse. The story appears to have emerged when old reports about the limited Salesforce incident were dug up and repackaged with a sensational new spin. As one outlet noted, it's not even clear why that report resurfaced now, or how it was misconstrued into a supposed warning impacting all Gmail users. It was a classic case of journalistic telephone. The initial misreporting seems to have conflated two separate things: Google's standard, ongoing fight against phishing, and the specific contained Salesforce incident. Some reports framed the story as Google issuing an emergency warning to all users in response to a phishing attack that targeted a Salesforce instance. This phrasing is dangerously misleading. It implies a causal link that doesn't exist. Google is always fighting phishing. The Salesforce incident was a separate issue that affected a tiny fraction of business contacts. Mashing them together created a narrative that was far more dramatic and far more clickable than the mundane reality. Once this distorted version of the story hit the internet, it spread with predictable and uncontrollable speed. On platforms like X and Facebook, nuance is the first casualty. Headlines are stripped of context, and alarming phrases like Gmail emergency warning are amplified. People share the story without reading the details, and soon, the misinformation becomes the accepted truth. Each share adds a layer of perceived legitimacy, until the false narrative is so widespread that it seems impossible that it could be wrong.